Hi friends, this is Loli. Today I'm participating on a collaboration hosted by Sarah from Sunflowers and DIYing and co-hosted by Christine from DIY Craftaholic. For this challenge, we gotta use napkins to create Christmas decor. The napkins that I'm working with for this project were sent to me by Gwen from At Home with Gigi. I love how versatile this napkin is. It has a shiny section, which I was able to use for two of my DIYs, and it has a more muted and more toned section as well, so I was able to use this paper for a couple of my DIYs. The first thing I did was measure the surface that I needed to cover both of these little stockings, and I cut it off, and now I'm making sure that it still fits, and I'm going to attach them to this napkin using some Mod Podge. I just want to give you a warm welcome to my channel and a thank you to all my supporters. I used enough Mod Podge to completely adhere the paper, but not so much that it will make it wrinkle. I tap the napkin down and remove most of the air bubbles, but then I'm using my Mod Podge roller to help me with that as well. Once that is drying, I took two more of these stockings and I'm going to paint them using this green paint that I got at the Dollar Tree. I made sure to cover both the front and the back. Now I'm going to take this red paint that I got from the Dollar Tree as well, and I'm going to do the same thing with these two stockings. And while they were drying, they multiplied. This challenge is only using napkins, but I really wanted to have some at this print on my stockings as well, so I just snagged this DIY in there as well, and this one was done using some tissue paper from the Dollar Tree. I cut the paper to the adequate size of the stocking, added some Mod Podge, and then laid it right down on top of my stocking. I just patted it down, make sure that everything was nice and flat and adhered, and I put it to the side to dry. Now I'm using some more of that napkin that I used in the beginning, and I'm doing the same thing, making sure that I have enough to cover the entire stocking, and then cutting it off. I'm going to add some Mod Podge to the entire surface. I'm only doing the bottom part. I want the tops to remain the same color. Once the Mod Podge is down, I make sure to put the paper down, make sure that all the lines are nice and straight before I put that down onto the Mod Podge. Then I go back in with my Mod Podge roller just to make sure there's no more bubbles and to make everything nice and flat and adhered. Once that one is drying, I sneak in a little bit more of tissue paper. I really like this print. I found it at the Dollar Tree this weekend and I really wanted to use it. So I did the same thing I did with the previous tissue one, just covered the bottom half of my stocking with the Mod Podge, laid down my paper with the print exactly how I wanted it on my paper, and then put it to dry. Now it's time to go over and separate the two stockings that I did in the beginning. So in order to do that, I use my utility knife there just to carve away the extra paper and separate both of the stockings. I use the knife to remove all the excess paper as well, just so the next step is a lot easier. Then use a lighter to burn off the ends and have the paper mold to the shape of my stocking. I was unable to use the fire for that little opening on the top of the stocking, so I took my utility knife and just cut away the paper in that section. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and leave me a thumbs up. I wanted to outline the stocking, so I used some of this puffy white paint from the Dollar Tree and just went over it to all the ends of this stocking, and I'm going to also use it at the top. I just went back and forth over the entire section. Now I'm going to add some of these large glitter to the top, on top of the white. I was hoping to go light, but as you will see in a few minutes, I had a little bit of an accident trying to go light and I went pretty bad there. So I said, you know what, let me just go all the way then. But it didn't turn out as I was hoping. I was determined to have this done pretty cute, so I went over, dust off the excess, let it dry, and I will try again later. I moved on to one of my striped stockings, and I'm removing the excess with my scissors, and I'm gonna burn off the little ends until it fits as a glove. I took some more of the puffy paint and I'm making a line to do a nice transition between the stripes and the other surface. And I quickly decided that I wanted to fill in the entire top of this stocking. I want to call it pumpkin. It's a stocking, and I'm just going to use some of this faux snow from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to sprinkle it right on top of the white puffy paint to use it as a little more of a detail that looks like snow. I lightly patted it down just to ensure proper adhesion and tapped off the excess. Now it is time to get the other stocking ready. So I did the same thing, burn off the excess paper to make sure that everything molded, and here I'm going to be using some of the red puffy paint from the Dollar Tree. I completely outlined the top part of the stocking and filled in the rest using this paint. While the paint was still wet, I took some of the silver leafing from the Dollar Tree and I sprinkled it in the top of the paint. Once again, I went a little bit too heavy-handed and I ended up putting a little bit too much than I really wanted. But it's okay, we can always fix it later. While that dry, I took this other one from the Dollar Tree, the one that we put the faux snow on, and I'm just outlining the bottom part of the white with some of that red puffy paint from the Dollar Tree, and I'm taking some of the chunky glitter and adding some on top of the red paint. Then I went back to the 2 tissue stockings and I just cutting off the excess tissue paper, and I'm going to burn off the ends as well. For the 2 green stockings, I'm using this napkin that Gwen sent me as well, just removing the 1 ply and leaving the printed ply. I added some Mod Podge to the surface before putting the paper down, then traced my stocking out using my utility knife and repeated the same process with the second stocking. Now it's time to embellish these pieces. So I used some of this red puffy paint from the Dollar Tree and I just placed it in the seam in between the paper and the wood. I repeated the same thing on the other stocking, but this time with the white puffy paint. I really wanted these stockings to have little pom-poms. I just thought they would be cute, so I took some of the small beads. I think it's like 35mm wood beads that I got from Amazon a while back, and I'm just gonna paint some red and some white in order to add to these stockings as well. I just used a small skewer to hold on to the beads so I can paint it without having to hold them. I wasn't very pleased once the red puffy paint dried. I didn't like the color, so I went over with the white puffy paint and I just fixed it that way. Then while that dried, I took some of this ivory and gold jute cord that I got at Michael's, and I'm going to do the little arrangement with the pom-poms with some of the beads. So I used the red beads for this jute cord and attached it to the green stocking with the red poinsettia. I found it easiest to loop the cord through one of the beads and then loop it through the top hook of the pumpkin and then loop another bead on after that, so you will have a bead on each end, and then did that one tiny knot and then laid it flat and tagged it with a little bit of hot glue. Then I took some of this gold color paint. It's a metallic gold from Krylon, and I just did a tiny amount on the ends, just a quick little distressing on the ends with the gold color on all the perimeter of the stocking and along the edges. And here you see this little cutie. I really like it, very cute. But it still needs a hanger, so I took some more of that gold and ivory color from Michael's, that jute cord, and I folded it in half, put the folded piece through the hole, looped the other two ends through it, and tied the end in a knot, just to make sure that this lays nice and straight once I hang it on the tree. Now it's time to embellish some other ones. So I'm going to take these two and I'm going to go with the red twine for these, and I'm going to add some of the white little wood beads to it instead. And I just burned off the stragglies with the lighter. For the hanger, I also used some of this red jute cord I also got from Michael's. And I'm just doing the same process that I did before. Cut a piece in half, fold it in half, put that folded piece through the hole, loop the other two through the loop, tie a knot at the end, cut the excesses, and I'm done. I felt that the green ones needed a little bit more sparkle, so I just added a little bit of the white puffy paint on top of the paint that was there before. And I'm adding a couple of flakes of the gold chunky glitter from the DollarTree. For this wet and white stocking, I didn't like how the flakes fell on, so I took my spatula and I just scraped off the excess paint, and I took some of that glitter off, and I'm gonna start over. So I took the red puffy paint and I dropped it back on, and I'm adding a little bit of silver chunky glitter on it, but in a little bit more organized manner, so they're all just laying down flat in a straight line. Then I return to the scene of the crime with these flakes. So I'm going to try to take off as many as I can. And I just went over it with my nails, just scraping off any excess, scraping off anything that is just laying flat. And I'm going to try to outline it in a more organized manner, because it comes out very jagged on here and I didn't like it. So here is my attempt at fixing that. And I ended up liking how I ended up. Now I moved on to the snowy stocking. I'm just taking some of my white acrylic paint and just doing a small dry brush on the perimeter of the stocking, just to give it more of the snowy effect and give it a little more dimension. After that, I took some of the cotton twine from the DollarTree and looped one of the white beads through, white the stocking through, and then another bead. Tied each ends of the beads with a knot big enough that the bead does not go through it, and then cut my twine. I'm gonna do one single knot, and I'm going to take, never mind, it seems like I need to first embellish the other one before I finish tying that one. So I took some more of the puffy paint, and I'm taking some of that dusting that I had remaining from the other stocking, because this stocking needed a little bit of sparkle apparently. So I am adding some of that very fine silver flakes to that just to give it a little more shine. And we are back now to tie the other stocking pom-pom. So I did a single knot there, added a tiny piece of hot glue underneath it, or not. Apparently not yet. So we are going to work on the other one that was bothering me, that blob of glitter on the top of my stocking. It was just looking horrible. So I just scraped off as much as I could, try to make it a little bit resemble something that I was envisioning for it to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and redefine the top of the stocking with some more white puffy paint. I had also taken off some of the flakes from the sides where they were clumpy, and I'm just going in a more detailed manner, just adding some more of the flakes in the areas in which they had scanty ones. Now it's time to beautify the sparklers of the stockings. I used for this one some of the white cotton twine and a couple of the red beads as well. Same method for the 50th time. I just took some hot glue just to help me go through the bead a little easier, and I just, to make the twine a little pointier. I still was having a hard time, so then I made a knot at my end, double checked to see the length in which I wanted my beads to fall, and cut the excess off, made my knot in my final bead there, and cut off the excess. I just make sure I did like a loop the twine twice through the knot in order to have a bigger, chunkier knot so my bead doesn't go through. And once that happened, I did a single knot at the top and took a little bit of hot glue, tacked it down so it will fall nice and neat at the top of my stocking. For some of the stockings, I wanted a more metallic look, so I got some of these jingle bells from the Dollar Tree. These are the smallest size they have. It comes in a 50 count. And I'm going to use my red jute cord and some of the silver ones to attach to the silver leaf stocking. So I did the same method. I put my twine through the hole and then attached one of the jingle bells by adding it by the little opening that they have at the top. I did a double knots for these and then went over to the other end, cut my jute cord, tie the other jingle bell to the other end, and did the same process like I did before by doing a single knot and tucking it down so it falls neatly on top of my stocking. I do have to confess that it was a little bit harder to get these jingle bells attached than it was the beads. Once I tied the jingle bells, I did give them a little touch of hot glue just to make sure that they will not fall off. And here it is all completed. I'm obsessed with that one. So for the tissue ones, for the green one, I went with some white as the border to, help transition between the paper and the red. And I thought this needed a touch of gold, so I used the white cotton twine and the gold jingle bells to work as the pom-poms for this stocking. For the red and gold stocking, I went with some red jute cord and some gold jingle bells. So I did the same thing that I did for the 6th time with the cords. And yeah, I just attached it using a little bit of hot glue. It was harder to put this thicker cord through the jingle bell openings, but I got it done with the help of a little bit of hot glue. And just went over and tightened up my nuts and secure my nuts with a little bit of hot glue as well. I'm sorry that I'm a little bit out of focus here, but that's pretty much what I did. If you're enjoying this content, please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. It helps my channel grow, and I truly appreciate it. And here are my finished stockings. I hope that you guys like them. I think they're each unique in their own way, and they have a little bit of pizzazz. So here is my second DIY. For this, I'm using this napkin that I also got from my friend Gwen. And she also sent me this little Christmas tree, so I thought it was perfect and they worked well together. The first thing that I did was double check to make sure that this napkin will cover the entire tree. Once I was sure, I removed one of the layers and kept the printed layer. Now I'm going to paint my tree using some apple barrel acrylic paint. And I just wanted my tree to be pretty white, so that's why I did that. Otherwise, I would have just put that right onto the wood. Once my paint dried, I took some Mod Podge and added in small sections of my tree. And I just didn't do such a thick coat. This paper is pretty thin, so I just did like a light coat on Mod Podge, just enough to adhere the paper but not wrinkle it. I added the paper, leaving the trunk of the tree undone, and tap down the area, removing any air bubbles, and I just kept working in the same way in smaller sections until I was done completely covering my tree. And then I went back and checked my ends, make sure that the branches and the tissue paper was completely attached on all the corners. So I'm going back with a little bit of Mod Podge in those areas that were not completely attached, just to secure those areas. Once the Mod Podge was dry, I removed all the excess paper with the scissors and just making sure, just doing a quick little trim here. And then once the largest amount is gone, I'm going to make another different cuts to expose the different branches of the tree and have a cleaner cut. Just making sure one more time that I have no bubbles, and then I am going to be burning off the ends, making sure that this has the cleanest cut that it possibly can have, while cinching the ends as well, giving it a little bit more character. Once I was done with that, I took some of this Waverly Antique Wax and I'm adding some to the trunk of the tree. I'm going to be adding it in layers. I'm going to add a little bit, let it dry a bit, and then add another layer until it is the way that I would like it to look, more like a tree trunk. Now I took one of these packages from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to use the gold star that it comes with. I'm going to attach it using some glue, but first I'm going to distress my ends of my tree using the brown color furniture marker from the Dollar Tree, just to give this a more pronounced outline to my tree. Now it's time to dress up the tree. I took some jute cord and I'm going to just string some of these jingle bells. I did 4 jingle bells for the first row there. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just measure it, make sure that it is enough jute cord to go around to the back, and I'm going to leave it a little bit loose. So the first thing I'm gonna do is add some hot glue to the back of my tree and put the jute cord onto it. Then make sure that I'm not putting it too tight, and I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. I repeated this process with the bottom as well. Then I took an 11 by 14 picture frame that I had painted previously, took the backing off, and I'm attaching one of these wall decals from the Dollar Tree to the backing that it comes with. I took it and cut off the excess, and now I'm going to place it back down onto the same picture frame. Then I took my tree and attached it using some tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree. I used 2, one in the top and one towards the bottom. I attached it using some hot glue, and this is going to make my tree be like more 3D on this piece. I also took this piece word from the Dollar Tree. It comes in a pack of 3 with a couple more other words, and I'm going to give it a rusted look. First, I started with some of my Waverly antique wax. Then I'm using some of this flamingo red paint from Apple Barrel. Then I'm coming in with a little bit of orange, the color pumpkin from Waverly. And then I'm gonna come in with this brown oxide color from Apple Barrel. I'm just doing this in layers, blending the colors while the colors are still wet. And then lastly, I'm gonna come in with ink from Waverly to tie everything in, blend everything in, and you get your rust. I just use my heat gun to warm it all up and dry it up quickly. And here it is. I'm just gonna attach it with a little bit of hot glue for now, making sure everything looks the way I want it. And we're gonna be putting some of the Spanish moss in the bottom of the tray there, the picture frame, and what would have been the ground where the tree is sitting on. I just attached it using some hot glue. I trimmed off the excess and I shaked off some of the excess there. I wanted to have a little bit also on the tree trunk, so I added some hot glue to that. I tapped off the sign there that was a little bit loose and got rid of the excess, and here is my completed piece. I am so proud of this one. I love how rustic it looks. I love how the colors play together. That peace sign, it just looks like it was outside, weathered, rusted. Is so cool. I really love this piece. And there comes my adorable little stockings once more. And this concludes my DIYs for today. I really had a lot of fun making these. Thank you for spending time with me. As always, be blessed, be a blessing, and craft responsibly. Don't forget to follow me on the social media if you like. And here is my social media names.